So I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to start by saying I am a psychologist at heart, and my ultimate goal is human-centered design and making things for people. And I'm a consumer of technology. I see that as a tool. I'm a consumer of information. I see that as a tool. And making people's lives better is really the underlying goal here. I focus a lot on assistive technology, helping people who are in a non-standard or an unusual category. Often, because I use sound, it means we're helping people with vision impairments a lot. Now, Maslow has this interesting hierarchy of needs that I've adapted here. And basically, the idea is that there's this pyramid of needs, and at the bottom you have the basic physiological kinds of needs, like breathing, eating, those kinds of needs. And only after you satisfy those needs are you likely to be interested in or spend any energy in satisfying any higher needs. Then you have safety and belongingness, esteem, cognitive kinds of and aesthetic needs. It turns out that a lot of assistive technology tends to focus more on making sure that people can get food, or making sure that they can move around, or that their socks match. And there's not a lot of help for them in these higher aesthetic or cognitive needs. Yes, there is some work being done to help people, say blind students, but it's fairly low in this hierarchy of needs. We're trying to focus on the whole range, and that one of the reasons we have so many projects is because we're addressing these physiological and navigational and cognitive and educational, but also the aesthetic needs. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, the higher level things. Just as a quick reminder, we have lots of people with lots of disabilities, and that ranges from cognitive and physical impairments. We're focusing on people with vision impairments, but we also have to understand that their cognitive and aesthetic needs remain to be fulfilled. I guess I can use this, right? Now, how is it that we can use mobile devices to help them interact with their environment, to learn about their environment, to navigate through their environment, to make sense of it? This is where this comes together with this group. We've addressed this in a number of ways. One project is our SWAN system, the System for Wearable Audio Navigation. And by the way, we have great fun with acronyms in my lab, although I tend to have the veto power about what's acceptable. This one nearly became SWANK. You know, we're trying to figure out where the person is in great detail so that we can use that information to tell them how to get from place to place and also what's around them. So they're navigating through their environment and learning about it at the same time. Well, all of the challenges that we face, GPS is horrible for this task because GPS has accuracies or inaccuracies on the order of meters or tens of meters, but we need centimeters or feet. 3 feet of error in GPS means death for someone stepping off the curb into the road. Okay, these are real concerns. The person can't walk around with a visual interface, so we have to come up with novel interfaces, often using sound. That brings up privacy issues because if I'm using my navigation system to go to the bank, I'm standing on the street corner in Manhattan, I say, "Computer, take me to the ATM." Well, you're going to get to the ATM along with a bunch of people following you, right? So privacy issues. It's just a cascade, as we all know. So people with vision impairments, we want to use sound, but blind people refuse to have headphones covering their ears. So how do you use audio in a private way without headphones? So we had to study bone conduction audio. Well, no one knows how to do that very well, so we'll do it. So we have all these projects, but largely it's because we see this cascade of issues. And it ends up being very interdisciplinary. We have people in our lab and colleagues from all different flavors, all different areas of campus and different places in the world. One thing that we find is that these mobile devices, when they're out there in the world, you need to use the device, and there has to be some kind of an interface. So that often will mean auditory interfaces. And again, we want to do this in a way that's effective and efficient and go beyond just basically talking to you. All right, so that's just sort of giving you a sense that these many projects grow out of this desire to help people with visual impairments. I'm going to focus a little bit, or for the most of this talk, on the idea of informal learning environments. So a zoo, an aquarium, a science center. These ILEs are generally, a lot of research goes on in them. But what remains a problem is the dynamic exhibit. Okay, I can just show you a picture, or you can go up to a painting and either through a printed card beside it, or an audio guide, or a tour guide, someone can describe the painting to you. But how do you get something out of an exhibit where things are moving? So it's the dynamic, the changing kinds of exhibits, especially in these ILEs, that really are not solved yet. We want to be able to provide physical access. We want to provide people with this intellectual access, but also emotional access. I'll talk a bit about that more later. So can we use these mobile devices to enable and provide all these kinds of accesses? Well, we hope so. All right, so indulge me for a moment and close your eyes, okay? And experience the wonders of nature, the wonders of the world's largest aquarium if you had a vision impairment. So close your eyes. Oh, wow. No, you don't cheat. Keep your eyes closed. Oh, man. That's awesome. Okay, you can open your eyes again. Did you get it? Did you feel that? The wonders of nature? All right, so obviously seeing a whale shark is what I call a visceral experience, okay? How can we convey that emotional, a visceral experience along with the cognitive kinds of things? I want people to be able to report how many fish there were, what they were they like, how did they move, how did they interact. So I want people to be able to report that in a cognitive sense. They need to have understood what went on, but I also want them to ooh and ah in some way that reflects their experience. So, you know, this is the wonders of nature. We have what is 100-foot, 130-foot wide by 40-foot tall glass window and 8 million gallons of water. It's an amazing place if you can see it. Okay. All right, so how can we use sound to convey some of these cognitive things or information about the aquarium, and in the various ways that I've explained? It turns out that most of the sound that is used in an aquarium is elevator music. It's background. It's part of the exhibit design, but it's not informative in a very in a strict sense. There are audio tours, and some of them are done very well. But again, they're more static. They're recorded, and they describe static information. Because they're recorded, it's hard for them to be nimble and describe anything in a temporally changing or context-sensitive way. So none of these uses of audio typically convey the dynamics of what's happening. In fact, dynamics are just not conveyed. All right? So we're trying to change that. So figuring out what a critter is doing involves tracking the creatures, as we all have been talking about here in one of many ways, using that information about the location or its velocity or its change of velocity, or where two fish or anything comes together and connects in any way. That's the data that we have, and then how do we interpret that and explain what's salient, what's interesting, and communicate the meaning behind that. This is just the beginning, but even this is not something that's been done. So obviously we have to have an exhibit that is dynamic. We track it, and we come up with some kind of audio rendering or audio interpretation that includes music and text-to-speech and pre-recorded speech and non-speech. And then we have the visitor, of course, that has to interact with this whole information display. I'm going to gloss over some of these things and just say we have to track the critters. And you can imagine that if we're talking about whale sharks in an 8 million gallon aquarium, or meerkats in a football field sized area or at the zoo, or we're talking about fish in a 65 gallon fish tank, they're all different kinds of animals or creatures. They move in different ways. The environments are different. Maybe I can have one camera covering the whole thing. Maybe I can have multiple cameras. Maybe I need to tag them. Maybe I need to have sensors instrumenting the environment or instrumenting the animals. All of that is fair game as far as we're concerned. Again, I'm somewhat agnostic about all of that because I just want to be a consumer of the movement data. For the most part, in our projects, we focus on computer vision, just because our colleagues right now have expertise in that. So we use cameras. But the thing that is very interesting is the computer vision guys will say, well, what do you want to track? The first response is, well, everything, of course, right? Well, it turns out, as you'll see from this kind of experience, tracking all of those fish, as we say in the South, ain't going to happen. All right? But moreover, there's no point. Because if we ask people, visitors, to try to do this visually, we don't do this anyways, right? There's some point. That's the whole point of camouflage, and the whole point of swarming, and the whole point of herding. It's to blend the boundaries and to make individuals turn into groups. So we shouldn't be necessarily trying to track every single creature, every single fish, but rather, if they're all together, recognize that that's a school of fish and treat it as a new entity, a gestalt that emerges, and deal with that to communicate a school of fish rather than 75 individuals. So we have to be a little bit sensible about what the human perceptual capabilities are, but also what our cognitive interests are and what we would consider salient. So we do this kind of research. We have people go to the aquarium or we'll go to the zoo, or we show them videos and say, all right, what are you looking for? And it's kind of a think aloud protocol, and get them to really kind of barf up all the information that's going through their head, and what are they looking at? What are they thinking about? What are they querying? What are they looking towards? What would they like to know about? So it becomes a user-centered design. Then we can use that to inform the computer vision system so we know what to look at. Or we could understand what users are and visitors are seeing and looking for, and design the computer vision system to look for the other stuff, to help them out. So I only look for the bright red fish. Okay, well, we'll let the computer look at all the other stuff and make that information available to you if you really want it. So there has to be this user-centered design as far as we're concerned. And then there's this what we call the last mile problem, and how do I get the information from these computer systems to the user, and how do they interact with that interface? Obviously, they might have a mobile device where they can point on it or click on it, or even just an interface where they say, you know what, I just want to listen to the whale shark today, or I want to listen to the whale shark and the hammerhead, or I want the classical music version, or I want the jazz version, or I want the 80s rock version. All of those kind of interactions and preferences need to be communicated between the system and the user. So everyone says, oh, well, just use a smartphone. Okay, great, except completely inaccessible to blind people. Oh, now what? Well, we got to solve that problem too. So at every moment, we have to give ourselves a reality check that the easy path isn't necessarily going to work for us. But we can use mobile devices in a lot of these ways. We just have to be careful about the choices we make. All right, so this starts as a student project or as an unfunded project where we don't have real-time tracking, and we don't have a relationship with the zoo or the aquarium, and we don't even have fish or anything. We just have some goofy simulations built in Maya. So we use these VR fish tank mock-ups, and it gets us started, proof of concept. But then we say, all right, now we can progressively go through this stage of creating simulations, creating fish that give us the ability to play around and say, well, what if I have only 2 fish? What if I have 40 fish? what if they are all of the same type or different types? So we have the simulation that allows us to really experiment. It's good to know what you're doing before you go to an aquarium or a zoo and say we're going to, install something. How do we then take the data of these fish movements and turn them into sound that a person can experience? Well, some straightforward mappings, and mappings is what it's all about, right? The fish location and movement to sound parameters. In this case, I can have each fish mapped onto a different musical instrument. And then as the fish, say the Nemo, right, the clownfish, may be mapped onto the piano. And as the Nemo or the clownfish is in the left side of the tank, the sound would come out of the left speaker. And the piano instrument is over there where the fish is. When the fish moves across to the right, then the piano moves with it. It's a fairly straightforward kind of thing. As the fish goes up in the tank, bum, 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 I could have my pitch go up as well. Okay? Pretty straightforward. This is kind of bop you over the head cartoon mappings. People get it. Kids get it. It's not musically that interesting, but people get it. Now, we have to balance this issue of, do people get it, and could they report where the fish was and how did it move, versus did they like it, right? Did they get an aesthetic thing? Well, kids might find it fun enough that they wouldn't be worried about whether it was musically sophisticated or not. But if we have this jazz night for the donors to the aquarium, they don't want cartoony, they want symphony. So we have, user-centered music design there. Now, if I'm going up and down in pitch as the fish goes up and down, what does that do for me? Well, or does it do to me? It takes away my ability to use melody, right? Because I've given pitch away. I've mapped it onto the movement of the fish. So we have to be more creative and use something else and talk about, okay, well, maybe we're going to have melody moving within in a region, but we're going to move the whole register up and down, or other kinds of things, move the octaves, lots of things. I'll give you an example here of this one. Let's see how this... I'm getting it all here. You're not getting it over there? Is it coming through the speakers? It's just my... Well, this is... Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Then we have I'll get it. Can I just borrow this one? Yep. Okay, it's fortuitous timing. All right. So you get the idea that... So I'm going to go back a second here, and something that's quite easy to hear is there's a hi-hat. That at the top right, you'll see a little turtle, and he arrives high pitch right hand, okay, right channel, and he'll move left and down diagonally, and you'll hear as he goes down in pitch, okay, and he moves left to right. Okay, so so then there's a test here. Okay, how many fish were there, and where are they, and what are they doing, and which one moves the fastest? We have to evaluate this. We can't just do show and tell. We have to evaluate the utility of this, especially if we're going to treat this as an educational tool. So we're always on the lookout for, okay, did it sound nice, but did it sound right? Did people, were they able to get the information out of it? So this is part of what we're doing is trying things out, but systematically evaluating them. So that was that. Then we do other kinds of things and say, well, different kinds of movements would require different kinds of mappings. Oops. So all right, I've got ants, right? Now, where are they? Close your eyes and tell me, are they in the left or the right? Are they in the top or the bottom? And the hi-hat starts because the one guy just arrived. Okay. Does the feeling that you're getting from the music map onto, or is it similar to the experience? So we can ask these questions about the, we can say, tell me when the two ants kiss each other. All right? Do they all sound like they're in the left, or I mean the right side of the audio space because they're all on the right side of the, they did, right? Okay, so we can look at that. We can also say, well, what about, I go to the aquarium with my daughter, and she would like to have this experience using Disney character or Disney kinds of music. I'm not so into that. I want my 80s rock. Okay? Can I take the same data and map it onto different music and get a very different experience based on the same environment? So wait till the entrance of this guy. Okay. Get ready for your rock and roll coats. Yeah. It's not very loud. So it's music, right? It's a different experience, but it's all driven by the same data. This is all data driven. Now when these guys are all in the bottom right-hand corner, as you saw before, could my daughter and I both say, now, that's when they're all together, that's when they kiss? Right? Are we going to get the same ability to parse what's going on? So I got a million of them. All right. So the idea is that we're looking at different things. In this case, we have a derivative where liveliness is mapped onto tempo in music. We can also map jitter and all kinds of things, so different versions. We can also say, all right, I want to have more of a global sense. So it's not where each individual critter is, but it's tell me what the overall mass is, or the number of them, so that when they're all in one quadrant, you tell me about that. We can do that as well. I'm not going to play you all these videos, but you get the idea that I could say, look, I'm going to divide my space up into chunks that are a little bit bigger, and say if they're in the bottom right, I'm going to do something with the music there. If they're in the top left, you get that, and see whether people can tell me, right? Then we get to real fish working at the Georgia Aquarium, and we can have things that are not just the music that tells you where the movements of the fish are, but I can add intelligence. So if a fish enters a particular region, you can do something. What is something? Well, it depends on your audience, of course. But for example, when I have a 120-foot wide or 130-foot wide window, that's a lot of real estate. I could define a voxel, say in the top left, and when, say, the whale shark enters that voxel or crosses a plane, I can play a pre-recorded audio that says, look to your left. All right? Helping people, all people, or perhaps people who have vision impairment, or they have sort of mobility impairment, or you could say, you could avoid things like look to your left and say, the whale shark is entering from the left. So even if you can't see it, you can understand and have that interpreted for you. So we have these event-based triggers. You can also see the Disney side of this and interact in an emotional sense with your exhibit If I go to an aquarium and the clownfish comes in the middle of the exhibit, it could spawn a pre-recorded or text-to-speech message that says, "Hi, I'm Nemo. Welcome to my aquarium. So glad you could join me." Right? But only the kids who are getting the Disney theme experience that. And their parents might say, "Well, this is the clownfish found in Madagascar," depending on what they want. We're not trying to replace a tour guide, but we're trying to understand how people experience this exhibit. They interact with this informal learning environment often through a social relationship with someone they're attending with, or with a docent or a tour guide. So we have to understand all of that in order to work in this space. So fish narration, lots of things. Again, we have videos that I won't show you right now. Then we have just recently had some, this project is funded by the NSF now, and we have a research aquarium, so we're driving videos from that. So we have a complete end-to-end system where we have fish, live fish, camera, tracking server, music server, narration server, and then user interface for people to experience this. So it's a full pipeline. We're quite early in this, but we're able to do complete tracking of fish. I'll show you just one example here. And so we make the tracking, the feed from the aquarium is live on the internet. The tracking data is published on the internet, so you can connect to that feed of data and do with it what you want. And so we do all kinds of things. All right, and so then you'll see one of the things we did this spring, where we have the actual aquarium or an exhibit in the aquarium. Okay, this is a relatively small fish tank on the right. We have cameras pointing at it, and then we are kicking the feed to a small monitor to show that we're live. And then we have audio coming out of those vertical speakers on the sides, and people fell in love with this. This was on the way out of the aquarium right beside the gift store, right? And they stood there and blocked traffic. And it was sort of a conundrum for the aquarium. They're like, "Get these people out of here." But wait, no, keep them in here because they're right at the gift shop. We have some interesting, again, music research that we have to look at this sort of stuff and say, all right, this one was computer generated. This is completely computer generated. Algorithmically, stochastically. And again, we answer these same questions. Is it informative? Is it effective? Is it aesthetic? Then we also have people who go and do this is more a composer went through and developed this, composed this music. And we can see, not so much is the computer better than the composer, but just understanding the pros and cons associated with these things. It's quite compelling once you get sucked into all these things. But we're always evaluating these things with empirical, quantitative and qualitative metrics, with sighted, low vision, and blind visitors, because we take the universal design approach where everyone has to interact with these environments, and we should make it better for everyone. Lots of current directions involving different exhibits, different kinds of critters, meerkats at the zoo in Atlanta, dynamic exhibits of solar system activity and so on. And a couple of things I just want to point out also in closing here. Our future directions is, you can imagine that we have an automated system that is providing a background track, if you will, based on what the fish are doing, and then you can have a live quartet or a trumpet player jamming with the fish, right? That's a great way to interact in a sort of an artistic sense that we haven't sort of talked about too much over the last couple of days, but I hope that we can all be thinking about those sort of possibilities. This notion of visceral computing, how can we, what we're going to be doing is instrumenting someone, having someone with all kinds of sensors on, watching, standing in front of the whale shark exhibit, and when the whale shark enters, we're going to figure out what body changes happen. Does their heart rate go up? Does their blood pressure go up? What happens in their EEG signals? Then we're going to try to figure out if we can cause those same physiological effects in a blind person by using sound, so that they could share the same physiological and hopefully visceral kinds of experiences. And basically we're heading towards what we think is ILEs 2.0, just sort of rethinking how people can interact with these environments, both from a cognitive and learning perspective, but also from an experiential, visceral, emotional angle. And with that, thank you.
Thank you very much.